Police sealed off the dirt road as soon as the body was found this afternoon. Police trail bikes were brought in, so too the Newcastle Homicide Squad, detectives and forensic police. At this stage, they have few details. Police aren't willing to comment on whether the body is that of missing Cessnock teenager Alison Newstead. It's believed the area, which is opposite Pelton Colliery, was covered on the weekend during a search for Alison. Alison disappeared last Wednesday and was last seen at Cessnock McDonald's. Police hold serious fears for her safety. So Alison's parents have been informed?
Yes.
Police have confirmed the body is that of a female and was discovered late this afternoon.
Be around about 3:45. The body was discovered by two male people in the bush.
Is it a male or female?
It's a female.
Meantime, there are conflicting views about the state of the region's air quality following the release of reports by the Environment Protection Authority and ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation. An EPA investigation claims there's been a dramatic drop in air pollution and says the threat of acid rain in the Hunter isn't a problem. While the ANSTO report, which puts Mayfield at the top of a list of pollution sites in the state, has sparked Newcastle councillor John Sutton to call for an immediate investigation into the impacts of the pollution on health. Elements contributing to the Mayfield pollution reading include aerosol soil, potassium, iron and zinc, which are emitted into the atmosphere. One of the Hunter's biggest potential money spinners for the state government would be the sale of Freight Rail's coal operations. Treasury estimates a sale price of up to $1 billion in this financial year. Important public utilities, including electricity generator Pacific Power and the Lower Hunters Water Supply Authority Hunter Water Corporation, are on the list with a possible sale time of 1994-95. ALP Hunter Parliamentary Task Force Chairman John Price has serious concerns about the sale of power and water utilities.
I mean, if you take water with the Water Corporation and electricity, two essential elements in our manufacturing and indeed our total lifestyle process, why should we be handing them over to private enterprise purely and simply for short-term gain for this current government?
State Transit Authority is also on the sale list, with completion of commercialisation programs, establishment of route groups and increased competition suggested by Treasury. Newcastle ferry operations could also be sold to private enterprise, but the government isn't promised safe passage.
But I believe community support for our resistance to this will be such that the government will not be able to move quickly, and we'll be using every political and parliamentary device we can to make sure that this doesn't proceed.
Treasurer Peter Collins made no further comment today about the privatisation program, but points out where he thinks taxpayers will benefit, the government will consider privatisation.
The Minister announced details of the expansion during Legacy's national conference at City Hall today.
The DVA office in Newcastle is going to be moved down Hunter Street to a bigger and better location. We're going to open a Veterans Advice Network in Newcastle. That'll mean 2 extra DVA staff here.
The news was welcomed by 200 delegates from 48 clubs across Australia in Newcastle for the 3-day event. High on the conference agenda is a proposal to change the existing code of a legatee. With membership restricted to those who've seen active service and then gone on to support the families of soldiers killed or wounded, Legacy now wants to increase its dwindling numbers by inviting others to join. If adopted, the move will ensure that Legacy continues to support financially and emotionally the 129 books.
I think that those sorts of things are important to the welfare and the content and comfort of the widow.
The David Jones building is expected to fetch around $10 million when it's put up for sale from tomorrow. Adjoining premises will also be sold. They've been valued at $1.5 million. The properties are among 12 nationwide being sold by the Adsteam Group in what is regarded as Australia's largest property sale. All up, they're expected to bring in around $174 million. The properties will be marketed both in Australia and overseas during the next 7 months, with most interest expected from Asia. Potential buyers have until December to finalise their bids. According to Adsteam executives, the sale is part of ongoing rationalisation. In the last year, the group has sold commercial and residential properties worth around $240 million. The David Jones building is being offered with a 20-year leaseback arrangement. Jodie McKay, NBN News. Alison Newstead was buried on Saturday after a service at Cessnock St Joseph's Catholic Church. Father Vince Ryan told the gathering of friends and relatives that he would act as mediator for anyone who had information about her death. Police working on the case still have no idea how Alison died or how her naked body came to be dumped in bush at Pelton. It will be 6 weeks before results of toxicology tests are known. Police haven't ruled out an accidental death.
It's certainly one of the theories we're looking at, yes. There are many theories, as I said, and one of them would be an accidental death.
Senior Constable Tony Tamplin says all lines of inquiry are being followed, but he admits the case is extremely frustrating.
We're relying heavily on the results of the toxicology test to come back from Sydney, which probably is still a couple of weeks off. And it's, as I say, it's still waiting on information from the community to come forward.
Police are yet to locate Alison's clothes or her distinct baseball keyring. Jodie McKay, NBN News. Most of the dust was contained, minimising the environmental explosions have occurred. The EPA will meet explosions last night. Management to work out how to prevent it happening again. The company has launched its own investigation. Post says it was caused when an employee pierced the lining of the furnace with an oxyacetylene welder.
For the apprentice warriors of the dirt track, the Stephen Gall Motocross Clinic gives them a greater understanding of their sport. Lyndon Heffernan, with 15 years racing under his belt, including 7 in the pro ranks, instructed the youngsters from the Hunter and Central Coast of the Lake Macquarie Motorcycle Club's Awabra Raceway. He was impressed by his charges.
With these guys, they were quite good on some of the obstacles. The track here is quite smooth, so we tried to teach them a little bit about rough riding. There's quite a few tabletops and double jumps here, so we've spent a lot of time on that. And with a short, narrow course like this, starts are very important, so we also did a lot of work on the starts.
Other topics to be covered included care of the environment, safety and fitness. Clinics are proving popular with budding motocross competitors, as not only young boys but also girls and even middle-aged men look for further tuition to improve their riding ability.
Reservoirs aren't the first things that come to mind when you think of city treasures, but they can be a fountain of local history. Built in 1882, the Tyrrell Street Reservoir atop Newcastle Hill has been hidden away for more than 100 years.
What is underneath the ground where we're standing is an incredible structure of brick vaulting which covers the roof of the reservoir. So, in this location, it's not just architecture, it's a combination of architecture and engineering, which really is a showpiece.
Brian Souters is the architect in charge of the Heritage Sponsor program, an idea backed by Newcastle's Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Funding from both heritage and private sectors will ensure 6 local historic landmarks will be given a facelift and prepared for public inspection.
We think that by exposing what we consider to be treasures, we can encourage people to treat Newcastle more as a destination. So from a commercial perspective, they are of great value in the longer term.
This is the valve room, and if you look in here, you see these old valves, and they're really a work of art. You wouldn't see that today. They're cast, and it's just something that has gone out of engineering. So we really want the public to see these things so they get some idea of how it was in the early days.
This catch cry has been played over hundreds of times by Wendy and Toya. For the past 2.5 years, the father, mother and daughter team have delivered food to elderly people from the Charlestown Meals on Wheels kitchen.
Oh, I love it. I enjoy the company of the old people, and it's the only time I'm ever called a young girl.
More than 100 people in the Charlestown area depend on Meals on Wheels, which delivers their food 3 times a week. 87-year-old Leonard Woods is almost totally blind, but can still live at home with the help of people like the Tulls.
Oh, they help me out extra well.
For the first time in 24 years, the Charlestown service is facing jeopardy. It is in dire need of volunteers. Organisers say that older people are sent home early from crowded hospitals, needing Meals on Wheels to help them recover. That is the case with 69-year-old Doreen Jenkins of Whitebridge.
Well, I've just been in hospital and had an operation and I wasn't feeling the best. And my niece arranged for them to come and they're helping me out quite considerably.
21-year-old Toya has become a favourite among the elderly people.
I like the old people.
And do you talk to them about things?
Yeah, I'd say them about what I do or what I ever do. I like them both, I like them all. I like Mr Woods.
Wendy believes the service provides more than food.
Not only are they getting a meal, but they're having a yarn about their ailments or what's happened to them.
The dead woman was reported missing by her mother on Tuesday morning, the last sighting on Thursday evening. Yesterday, after receiving some information, police searched the creek and found the body.
We requested the VRA to launch a search in the creek. They did so, and after about an hour they found the woman's body floating in the river.
Police have identified the body as that of Judith Elizabeth Lamb of Narrabri, and Tamworth Forensic Police arrived yesterday afternoon to establish a cause of death. Today, police conducted an extensive search along the riverbanks, upstream and downstream from where the body was found, searching for articles of clothing and any other clues as to where the woman may have entered the creek. Police have interviewed several people trying to trace the dead woman's last movements. Sergeant Chisholm says investigations are far from conclusive, but police have not yet ruled out foul play.
Probably not so much suspicious as perhaps unusual, maybe a better description. Okay. But of course we've got to cover all bases and just make sure that there has been no foul play.
Jennifer Ingall, NBN News.
Despite the tough times in the bush, John Anderson is optimistic about the farming sector's future. Speaking to almost a full house at the showground, he talked of problems facing the agriculture industry and what needs to be done to fix them.
But I don't think there is any reason for us to despair in this country, despite all the problems that surround us, to despair that there may not be answers. There are answers. It's a question, however, of getting ourselves into a position where we can implement them and carry the Australian people with us.
But before a marked improvement can be seen for farmers, Mr Anderson believes Australia must address the problems with interest rates, the dollar, inflation and tax.
And one of the things we've got to do in this country is get the message over to the whole community that if you kill the goose that lays the golden egg, that's your productive sector, you will all suffer, and so will your kids.
Katrina Mackay is one of the youngest competitors on the circuit, but has already shown she has talent beyond her years. In dressage events, communication between horse and rider is the difference between winning and losing. Some of the sport's more experienced competitors believe the Dungog youngster has a rarely found touch.
She's, got a good seat and good hands, and, she's learning the finer concepts already of riding, so she's well on her way.
And Kathy Muller should know she's rated one of the best strappers in the United States, and in her 10 months in Australia has been able to retrain a polo horse for the rigours of show jumping and dressage.
I think this horse has got a lot of potential and he enjoys it, so if a horse enjoys what they're doing, then it's half the battle right there.
Olympic gold medalist Matt Ryan was back on his old stomping grounds today and understandably was faced with plenty of pressure. Every young rider wants to beat the world's best. Others have plenty of years to wait their turn. Today's show jumping events again proved popular with a record 200 entries. Some of the gates proved a little off-putting, but persistence paid off. Tomorrow morning's events begin with the cross-country at 9 o'clock. This morning's offshore wind swung around to the north this afternoon and turned nasty. The swell stayed a steady metre but wasn't exactly a ball to ride. Nelson Bay surfer Chris Hassan took every wave that came his way and extracted all the power he could out of it, riding most of them to shore. However, not all his wave selections were a success, but it was still enough to give him a second placing in his heat and push him through to the next round. Mike Campbell won the heat by making full use of the walls that were there. Tomorrow's second round begins at 7 o'clock with the final scheduled for 10 to 4. The breakers started in controversial fashion. Former Socceroo Rod Brown sprinted downfield as the crowd jeered that he was offside. Paying no attention to their protests, he fired a perfectly weighted cross-in to find Warren Spink. Spink was ecstatic at his start to the season and let the crowd know it. The Breakers fans that made the trip were confident their side would go on with it, but their hopes turned out to be only dreams. Wollongong's first goal came early in the second half, and it was a classic case of each of the Breakers thinking the other guy had it covered. The Reds' second came less than 10 minutes later after running the Breakers in circles until the gaps appeared. By now, Newcastle keeper Clint Gosling must have been feeling pretty ordinary, however worse was to come. He fended off the next raid but wasn't able to regather the ball in. A 3-1 loss. However, it wasn't all bad news. The Breakers did look impressive in the first half, and there's no doubt coach Jim Foley will be trying to maintain that enthusiasm at training this week.
Speaking at the ALP's Hunter Regional Assembly, Leader of the New South Wales Opposition in the Legislative Council, Michael Egan, welcomed the Olympics win but warned it's not a cure-all. According to Mr Egan, jobs created by the Games will be a drop in the bucket towards solving the problem of the state's 300,000 out of work. But he believes the Games will provide a unique stimulus to promote industry and economy.
Just as we bid for the Olympics, we will bid for other investment opportunities in New South Wales.
The party faithful say Labor will be in power for the Games but don't want to inherit any cost blowouts and will call on the Coalition to produce an itemised Olympic budget and stick to it.
What we need, therefore, is a comprehensive strategy to ensure that Sydney provides a dazzling Olympic Games with genuine community spirit, that New South Wales is not saddled with an unmanageable post-Olympic debt overhang, and that the Games are managed as part of a broader economic development to maximise business in New South Wales. Thank you very much.
Racing around a 2-kilometre course at a rate of knots can be tricky business, even for the most experienced driver. During the last event of the State Drivers' Championships today, Kempsey's Kevin Lee had an impromptu meeting with the fence. All of this obviously pleasing the spectators who, with the newly designed course, get to see 80% of the action. But hero of the day was Warhope's Michael Bowden, who took out the Class 1 buggy event. 6-cylinder sedans made their racing debut for the first time in Australia at the meeting, giving drivers who may not be able to afford a dinky-die race car the chance to get behind the wheel. Spectacular by day, Vincent's Outlook is a favourite spot amongst abseilers. But for two young climbers, their fun turned into a frightening ordeal when they became trapped on a ledge 100 metres from the top of this cliff. The Manning Rescue Squad responded to the call that the pair was in trouble shortly after 10 last night, then began a full-scale rescue to bring them to safety.
They were quite okay, a little bit cold, very hungry and a little bit disorientated.
More than 4 hours later, both were brought to the top, physically fine, but a little embarrassed about all the fuss they had created. Phil Davey, member of the rescue squad, says although the two were experienced abseilers, you can never be too careful.
It's not a situation I'd like to see anyone put themselves at risk in.
The day was organised by the Hunter Catchment Management Trust and was co-sponsored by the Association for Environmental Education. 25 community, land care, local and state government groups presented ideas about holding on to and repairing land buffering urban encroachment.
One of the things that disturbs us in the Hunter Valley is that the impact of European settlement here in 200 years has seen a marked change in the natural bushland of the Hunter.
Urban development, introduced noxious weeds, feral and domestic animals all take their toll on the remnants of bushland. Damage the land can't easily be restored. Organisers say the Bush Care Expo came about because of a growing trend in people seeking more information, not only in the future of their communities, but also in what they can do in their own backyards. Worm farms and composting ideas were of particular interest. Also making the most of the outdoors, hundreds turned out for a family fun day at Spears Point Park. The fun day was organised to promote Child Care Week. The theme this year, getting to grow and learning to know. The day coincides with other activities around the state. The 750 local government delegates from throughout the state arrived at Newcastle Civic Theatre in full regalia for what was to be the first official function in the grand old building after its $12 million restoration. Deputy Prime Minister Brian Howe delivered the opening address of the conference, but as the program was nearing its finale with a marching band waiting in the wings, the first fire alarm sounded. It forced the evacuation of the theatre management quick to pour cold water on a sabotage plot, rumoured to have been hatched by disgruntled former employees.
Oh, certainly not a prank. In fact, no, a very, very serious alarm.
The all clear was sounded and the program resumed, but moments later the fire brigade was back again, sealing heat sensors suspected. The pageantry continued with a parade of government leaders, unruffled by the interruption to program. Topics to be discussed during the conference: partnerships between federal, state and local government, sustainable development with a healthy environment and Aboriginal initiatives. The conference concludes on Wednesday. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Insucha might have the upper hand. It draws past exceptionally smooth, and Insucha is racing away with the cup. It's all Insucha. He scores nicely by 3 lengths to exceptionally smooth.
Driver David Aiken guided the 7-year-old to his 17th win and cut 2/10 off the race record. It paid $3.40 and $1.30, the Quinella $3.80 and the trifecta $43 even.
Over $1 billion of revenue being held up. That will continue. Today is not the end of it.
Have some dignity. Shame.
Sir John Carrick has been a figurehead in education for the past 40 years. A former Federal Minister for Education in the 70s, he was later chairman of the New South Wales Committee of Review, responsible for the Education Reform Act introduced 3 years ago. Sir John is travelling the state, discussing the effects of the Act and its impact on schools.
We thrust on them an enormous change. We've changed the whole concept. No longer primary schools, high schools, but the whole concept of a continuum of education with key learning areas.
Sir John has met with teachers, parents and educators in both junior and senior levels, opening the lines of communication on a number of issues, including retention levels, links with business and vocational training. In early childhood and intervention areas, he says it's up to parents to take a more active role in their child's education. He believes if parents teach more, children are better prepared for learning in the classroom.
Whether they can read properly or not themselves, if every parent were to spend a little time every day reading to a child, they would profoundly remove disadvantage. I can't think of anything more important than that.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Hunter Valley Rewinds is a business which repairs, overhauls and maintains electric motors for the mining, cement and building industries. It's been judged the best small business in Australia with fewer than 30 employees. In September, the company also won state categories of the Small Business Awards and is about to launch a new computer software quality assurance program overseas. Hunter Valley Rewinds has built a reputation over the past 10 years on total accountability for its jobs. A computer network allows clients to check on work in progress. The company had humble beginnings fixing backyard pool pumps and maintains a workforce of 24 skilled tradespeople.
The Margaret Jerd Learning Centre provides services which change lives. It provides 10-week courses as an alternative to school education and offers 6 live-in places to teenagers escaping problems at home.
Emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. The young people who are in our residential unit have had, if not one, many abuses.
But not all the centre's clients are from dysfunctional families. Many of these young people are here with the support of their parents.
Most of the kids who come in on a daily basis have either been expelled or are truanting, and there have been problems usually with behaviour at school. But once they've come to our particular program, the attendance rate is up around 95%.
What are you hoping to do when you finish here?
Hoping to get a job, trying to get a better education here.
I just want to get a job or maybe do an apprenticeship or whatever comes along, just anything.
Everyone at the centre goes through an education and training program which incorporates formal lessons with living skills and personal development. But next year this building goes up for sale. The centre is hoping to raise enough money to buy it.
The kids that come through here, they go back out into the community, they're worthwhile kids and they're profitable for the community. If we don't have a building like this, if we don't have a unit like this, what happens to the kids? Ask yourself that.